Before Mirror's Edge, when you thought of parkour games, you'd think of Assassin's Creed or Prince of Persia, but there was no game that would actually let you feel like you were jumping from roof to roof. Until a new title, by DICE, got announced in July 2007, described as something fresh and different from Battlefield. The game was a first-person action-adventure shooter. It had a very different art style compared to Battlefield, with all the clean and saturated colors accompanied by fresh gameplay. The game released in 2008 to be well received by critics and general public, and went on to sell in millions of copies worldwide. In this game, you play as a delivery girl, Faith Connors, in a dystopian city under the constant government surveillance, where the only way to send something without the big bad knowing is to use the runner services. The game has no HUD or map. The only navigation you have is the objects lighting up in red color, telling you which path you should take to reach your destination, which actually adds up to the game's aesthetic quite well. I love playing with runner's vision on, even though I know the layout of every level. The combat is fairly simple. You had the option to either beat people up with your fists or disarm them and shoot the others, or just run away to your goal. The game's mechanics are nothing complex. You can jump, roll, slide, and as I've already mentioned, fight and shoot. This game has a cool mechanic that is actually non-existent in the reboot, slow motion. By pressing a certain button, you slow down everything around you for a few seconds, allowing you to pull off some cool tricks easier. The game starts out from an optional tutorial, where your runner friend is guiding you through the runner playground, and helping you freshen up on your running and fighting skills.
Fight them one at a time if you gotta fight.
Then comes one of my most favorite opening levels ever, the prologue, which starts from this great cutscene with the main theme playing in the background. The actual level doesn't start the story yet. It is used to let you try out everything you've learned from the training outside the playground, and let you feel as an actual runner doing the delivery.
This is meant to be a low-key job. Why the hell were they shooting? What did you do?
Nothing. They just opened fire.
After finishing it, the actual storyline begins. Each chapter starts with the use of these animated cutscenes that tell you the story before we get back to running on rooftops. If you are interested in the full story of both games, you should check out my in-depth review that I released recently. I will link it in this video's description, but I can give you a quick recap on what it is for this game. Spoilers ahead. Your cop sister gets framed for a murder of a politician who was running for being a new mayor in town, and our goal throughout the game is to protect her and find people responsible for doing so. In our journey of finding the truth, we'll visit storm drains, climb a bunch of constructions, run through the metro tunnels, get ambushed at a mall,
Damn China's gone wild. Get out of there.
find a secret facility created specifically for practicing eliminating runners, get on a whole boat to catch a masked assassin, and conquer the glass fortress known as the Shard, where we rescue our sister from a crazy ex-runner one last time, managing to share a hug and catch their breath for the first time at the very edge of this fortress.
Concrete heart isn't beating, and I've tried to
all after fighting a range of different enemies. From the simplest guards with handguns to SWAT soldiers with rifles. And finishing with the elite guards who can jump, fight and dodge our hits just like Faith. The only type of collectibles in this game are the yellow runner bags, for collecting which you will unlock the concept arts in the bonus section in main menu. Finishing the game, the only thing you unlock is the hardest difficulty and unlocks a bunch of time trials, maps from previous chapters, with checkpoints you run through and a set time to beat. Your results could go on a leaderboard and you could compare your and friends' times, but I think that's not a thing anymore. The biggest reason as to why the fans still play this game is because of the modding community's hard work creating the amazing custom maps that could easily serve as full-blown DLCs that we never got, considering the effort that gets put into them. At the end of the day, this game is a solid 8, and I would go as far as give it a 9.5 out of 10, but I might be a little biased as this game has been in my life for almost a decade now. Despite a sort of weak story, this game never really manages to make you bored. It is always engaging with its fun parkour routes, intense chases, and vibrant, beautiful levels, accompanied by the amazing soundtrack score written by Solarfields that has defined this franchise. The original game went on to sell in millions of copies worldwide, leaving the players and the entire world trembling in the anticipation of a new game. It had already been confirmed that Mirror's Edge is a trilogy and the sequel was coming soon. However, it never came, and eventually the franchise was rebooted after just one game. Announced on E3 2013 under the name Mirror's Edge, was later titled Mirror's Edge Catalyst and came out during summer 2016. This time, unlike the acclaimed original, it had mixed reviews from the critics. Many were upset about the removal of ability to use weapons, the upgrade system, and an empty open world. Even though I can't blame them for saying that about the game's world, I will never understand the hatred towards the removal of weapons. I love the combat system in this game, even if it gets repetitive over time, but I can't just see how I would enjoy shooting up K-Sec. I absolutely enjoy the fluent fights that won't distract you from parkour, and I gotta give DICE credit for actually working on this aspect of the game more than the original, that didn't have more than disarming in basic attacks, knowing people would prefer guns over melee. Now you don't have access to certain moves like skill roll or quick turn from the very beginning. You will have to complete missions or side quests to gain experience points and buy upgrades with them. But personally, it never really bugged me as the game isn't really difficult without them, and you'll get them pretty quickly as the game progresses. The game starts out from Faith regaining freedom after being in prison for 2 years and reconnecting with old friends, while also occasionally meeting new people, like Plastic, a young talented hacker girl.
Almost killed you. Sorry. Come in.
Elise, a scientist that once worked with Faith's deceased parents.
Come on, girl. Save us all.
And Icarus, a new runner guy with a massive ego, because he's basically been replacing Faith while she was gone.
You could be anyone.
Well, you'll just have to trust me. Oh, at least you got here before dawn.
The weakest point of this game has to be the storyline. It had potential, but in the end was rather predictable and not exactly what I was expecting. Instead of taking down the government, the only thing we take down is a conspiracy type of injection that would let the big bad remotely control people and spy on them even harder. Out of new mechanics, we have dashing and focus. Dashing will give you a small burst forward, rewarding you with a bit of distance. And focus will give you protection from enemies' hits if you are on the move. To get through certain points in the city, you will need mag rope, letting you to attach to certain points and swing, or allow you to pull yourself up. Combat is also now a lot more than just attack or disarm. You have light attacks and heavy attacks. Some types of enemies can counter-attack, not letting you spam the same attack. You are also able to perform attacks on the move that won't take away your momentum. And sometimes you can also finish off your enemies with the cool third-person takedowns. One of my complaints about Catalyst is the lack of subtlety. In the first game, you'll never get an enemy introduction cutscene. You'll just stumble upon new enemies randomly and will have to figure out defeating them on your own. Here, however, every enemy has the introduction cutscene, with the tips of defeating them. It does look cool, but come on. The open world is also not very open. You get this impression of a huge city to explore, but at the end of the day, all you have is just a very few districts to explore. There are open world activities, such as deliveries, diversions, and the billboard hacks. Time trials are also present and can be created by the player by setting checkpoints wherever they want to, with dashes being the runs from A to B and only pre-made by devs. We have a wider range of collectibles this time around. Grid leaks, aka the orange globes. Runner bags. And electro chips will give you XP points, while documents and audio recordings scattered around the city will tell you more about the game's world. Besides main story, we also have a few side quests given by the characters you meet throughout the story, whom you can help with different sorts of stuff if you like. For example, Nomad will ask you to break into one of the Guardian's apartments to steal information about a Kruger Arms drone, with the next mission being to steal that same drone, or finding Birdman's lost birds who had message capsules on them. The best and my most favorite thing about this game is the level design. The dirty streets near prison that go into a construction and an old school vibe that is downtown, with glossy anchor and the pretty but artificial view for rich people who live in a fake fantasy of nature. Or the Shard, a glass fortress on a whole separate different island, where the most powerful don't ever have to see those who will never manage to have such power. Also the character design. I'm in love with Catalyst's Fate design. In the first game she didn't care about her outfit much and wore what was comfortable to her, while here we have a stylish, slick and bold choice of double-toned blacks and reds on the glove, bag and shoes, rocking the slim white capris with black stripes on them. I just think this look is very iconic and portrays Faith as the badass she is very well. I have been a fan of this franchise for almost a decade, and I can go on for hours talking about how much I love the smooth gameplay, beautiful cityscapes, level design, and especially the outstanding soundtrack of both games composed by Solar Fields. Their tunes perfectly reflect all the beauty, peaceful and sometimes intense situations that happen on your screen. All the ambient sounds that play in different districts of Catalyst perfectly portray the atmosphere of each of them. And the same goes to the shootout sequence in the first game. The vibrant colors that you never see in most games, especially with a dystopian setting. And the beautiful level designs of each chapter that make you wish you could visit those places in real life. I often see people say Catalyst should have never happened, but I won't be afraid to admit that I prefer it over the original. It has its flaws, but I still love them both so much at the same time. I don't play them as often nowadays, but that's because I've already had lots and lots of fun for over hundreds and almost thousands of hours, and I will always recommend these games for people to give them a try at least once. And I'm telling you to send this video to the friends you've been trying to convince to play this game. Or if you're new and you're thinking about playing, I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. This was my love letter to the franchise I'm devoted to, and I want to thank every single person who've been involved in the making of both games, and please EA, please, consider experimenting and trying it again. If you're very interested in these games and have no time to buy and play both of them, you can check out my in-depth review. Before I play the final montage, I want to tell you to subscribe to my channel if you like content like this, because I am planning to make much more reviews of video games that I really adore, and thank you so much for watching this video.